Ethan never considered himself part of his family's picture-perfect world. At 22, he'd started bartending, and at 30, he owned a tequila empire, though no one outside of the industry knew it. Family. They still thought he was mixing rum and cokes at some dive bar. So when he got the wedding invite to his sister Tessa's big day, he almost laughed. Almost. The invitation was formal, crisp, with his mom's neat handwriting. Grandpa Harold had probably forced their hand. He always did like Ethan. Ethan stared at the invite. Fancy venue, chandeliers, marble floors, the kind of wedding where people wore cufflinks and whispered about stocks. He planned to go, blend in, smile politely, and leave before dessert. But something told him this night wasn't going to be that simple. Because as he stepped into the hall that Saturday evening, his dad's voice cut through the soft music. "Oh, Julian, you mean the bartender. He's probably mixing drinks downtown. He wouldn't last 10 minutes here." Laughter followed, but Ethan didn't flinch. He walked in like he belonged, black suit sharp, hands clenched at his sides. Inside, he wasn't just the bartender, he was invisible, for now. But that was about to change. The bride and groom made their grand entrance, champagne flutes sparkling in the golden light. Tessa's smile faltered when she saw Ethan. "Julian, you came," she said, surprised but warm. James, her new husband, extended his hand. "Nice to meet you," he said. Ethan shook it, calm, polite. "I'm Julian," he replied. James blinked. Then his eyes darted to his phone, typing frantically. The moment his gaze returned to Ethan, his face had drained of color. Mouth slightly open, he muttered something about grabbing a drink and vanished into the crowd. Tessa frowned. What was that about?" Ethan shrugged, raising an eyebrow. "No idea." Here's the thing no one in the family knew. Ethan hadn't just been a bartender. He started a liquor brand 7 years ago. One viral ad, one celebrity endorsement, and a lucky distribution deal later, and his tequila was now served across 3 continents. The bar at this wedding, that tequila, his. And James, well, James just realized he was shaking hands with the guy who literally owned the booze everyone was sipping. Ethan smiled quietly. For once, he wasn't invisible. Ethan leaned against the bar, watching the whispers start like wildfire. Phones appeared under tables. A groomsman pulled up his Forbes article, "Bartender turned tequila tycoon." Tessa tried to act calm, but her hands fidgeted nervously with her clutch. Cousins Ethan hadn't seen in years sidled up, pretending they'd always been best friends. Uncles and aunts suddenly remembered him from family reunions. And his dad, his dad stood frozen near the buffet, holding a glass like it might bite him. Ethan smirked. People who'd mocked him for years suddenly looked at him like he was a Marvel superhero instead of the college dropout bartender they written off. Then his dad finally approached, smiling too hard, too fake. "Julian," he said, voice trembling slightly, "didn't expect to see you here." "You invited me," Ethan said evenly. Right, still bartending, huh?" "I haven't touched a shaker in 5 years. Put the tequila in your glass. That's mine," Ethan replied, calm as a saint. The room went quiet, and just like that, the invisible son had become the center of attention. Ethan walked over to the bar, nodding at the bartender. "Hey, you guys using Kess for the house tequila?" he asked casually. "Yeah," the bartender grinned. "Kike's Blanco smooth stuff, you tried it." "I'm the founder," Ethan said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. The bartender's jaw nearly hit the marble floor. Ethan didn't need to look behind him. He already knew his dad was there, listening to every word. Face melting, ego shattering. Around the room, whispers erupted. Phones were pulled out, fingers typing, everyone Googling Ethan under the table. The invisible, dismissed son was suddenly the man of the hour. Tessa tried to play it cool, but Ethan saw the tremble in her hand. She wasn't mad at him. She was scared for him. Scared her perfect little world was about to get exposed. And Ethan, he was just warming up. The whispers spread like wildfire. James whispered to his brother, then to his dad, then to a groomsman. Faces turned pale, phones whipped out, screens lit up with headlines about the bartender who built a liquor empire. Ethan's dad finally realized this wasn't a fluke or a joke. The son he'd slowly erased, the failure at the wedding, the invisible one. He was a billionaire, a walking, sipping, tequila-owning nightmare of success. Tessa's friends looked confused, exchanging glances. "Wait, you own that tequila?" one asked, nodding toward the bar. Ethan sipped his water, calm as ever. "Yeah, that's mine." The groomsman froze mid-cheer. His dad's smile faltered, then cracked. Ethan didn't need to speak another word. He let the truth humiliate the man who had spent decades trying to erase him. And the best part, Ethan didn't have to lift a finger. Ethan watched from across the room as his dad clutched an untouched glass of champagne, looking like someone had just told him the family dog could file taxes. Every laugh from the crowd felt like tiny pinpricks aimed straight at him. Cousins who had once ignored him now leaned in, nodding like he'd just solved world peace. Uncles whispered, aunts fanned themselves. Finally, his dad stormed over to Ethan's mom, muttering under his breath, and Ethan caught snippets. He owns the tequila. How could we not know? I raised a bartender." Ethan smiled faintly, sipping his water. There was no victory in gloating, just watching the truth land perfectly. Later, Tessa sidled up to him, still fuming with nerves and embarrassment. "Did you really have to humiliate him like that?" she asked, voice low. Ethan shrugged, mischievous grin forming. "Did I, or did the truth do it on its own?" And with that he turned, letting the whispers and chaos follow him like a perfect, cinematic cloud of karma. By now, Ethan had become a spectacle. Cousins he hadn't spoken to in a decade were sidling up, pretending they'd always been BFFs. "So, tell me about your tequila," one said, as if they weren't the same person who once called him a loser at Thanksgiving. James's family hovered nearby, still trying to piece together how the bartender shaking hands with them had suddenly turned into a global mogul. Every glance at their phones was a silent panic attack. Ethan took it all in like an art critic admiring a masterpiece. He let them flounder, their whispers bouncing off the chandeliered walls. He didn't need to rub it in. The shock was intoxicating enough. And the bartender turned tycoon. He stayed calm, polished, smiling politely at people who had once ignored him. Every smirk from him was a reminder. The failure was standing taller than anyone in the room. Ethan moved through the room like a ghost who suddenly had a spotlight. No speeches, no dramatic announcements, just presence. He overheard his dad muttering to a friend, voice tight. 7 years, and we never knew." Ethan smiled inwardly. That's all it took, 7 years of quietly building an empire while his dad assumed he was wasting his life behind a bar. Meanwhile, Tessa's friends whispered, James's family murmured, and cousins nudged each other, secretly Googling him under the table. Every eye in the room tried to piece together how their invisible cousin had become a global success. Ethan didn't need to gloat. Every shocked face, every dropped jaw, every stammering introduction, they were his speech, his silent revenge. And just like that, he realized the night was already perfect. By mid-evening, the wedding reception had completely shifted. The bar, once just a place for pretty drinks, became the center of attention. Guests clinked glasses of Cas Blanco, marveling at the smooth taste. Ethan leaned casually against the counter, letting people come to him. "Wait, you own this?" one guest asked, eyes wide. "Yep," he said, shrugging like it was nothing. Phones appeared everywhere, selfies with him, screenshots of his Forbes article, frantic searches for his company's website. The bartender who had been invisible was now the star of the night. And his dad, standing stiffly by the dessert table, glass untouched, looking like someone had asked him to explain quantum physics in ancient Greek. Ethan caught his gaze for a brief moment. No words were exchanged, but the message was clear. The boy they dismissed had become a man they couldn't ignore. Ethan smirked, taking another sip of water. The night had just begun, and he had already won. Ethan's dad was still hovering, muttering under his breath, looking like someone had just asked him to apologize to a cactus. "Still bartender," he muttered to a friend, voice cracking. Ethan raised an eyebrow and took a slow sip of water, pretending not to hear. He could see the gears turning in his dad's head, confusion, disbelief, frustration, maybe even a tiny spark of respect buried deep under decades of denial. Meanwhile, whispers traveled faster than the wedding photographer could snap photos. Guests were sharing headlines, showing screenshots, nodding at Ethan like he just revealed the ending to a mystery novel nobody expected to be good. Tessa sidled up again, shaking her head. "You really know how to make an entrance, huh?" Ethan grinned, voice low. "I didn't make an entrance, I just showed up." Sometimes the truth was all the mic drop a man needed. By now, the whispers had turned into full-blown panic. Phones were out everywhere. "He owns the tequila," someone shouted across the room, half in awe, half in disbelief. Ethan's dad was packing, muttering, clutching his glass like it might explode. His once perfect image of Julian as the loser bartender was crumbling fast. Every cousin, uncle, and aunt who had dismissed him now looked like they'd been caught in a hurricane. Tessa approached, trying to smooth things over. "Dad, calm down, it's just he's successful." "Successful?" his dad barked, voice rising. "He was behind a bar, mixing drinks. And now he trailed off, flailing at the air as if words could somehow erase the truth." Ethan leaned against the bar, sipping water, enjoying every second of the chaos. The night was his stage, and the family who had erased him for decades were the unwitting audience. The best part, he didn't need to say a word. Tessa pulled Ethan aside, exasperated but smiling. "You know, you really do have a flair for timing," she said. "I mean, humiliating him like this at my wedding." Ethan shrugged, trying to look innocent. "Did I humiliate him, or did the truth do it on its own?" Tessa laughed despite herself, shaking her head. "You always were dramatic, but this is next level. Dad looks like he swallowed a lemon whole." Ethan grinned. "It's amazing, isn't it? Years of being invisible erased, and now everyone finally paying attention." She sighed, glancing at the crowd. "I just hope James survives discovering you without fainting." Ethan chuckled. "Don't worry, he's already halfway there." And in that moment, Ethan realized something. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about finally being seen. After an hour of whispers, stunned glances, and secret Googling under tables, Ethan decided he'd done enough. No big exit, no speeches, no dramatic mic drop. Just leave. He waved politely at Tessa. "Congrats again," he said. "Thanks," she whispered, still shaking her head with a mix of awe and exasperation. Ethan glanced at his dad one last time. The man's face had settled into a permanent scowl, untouched drink in hand, as if Ethan had cast a spell. Perfect. He moved through the crowd, smiling politely, shaking a few hands. People whispered, cameras clicked, phones pinged with notifications. Every look was a reminder. He wasn't invisible anymore. And then he was gone. Just like that, the bartender-turned-billionaire left the wedding without fanfare, letting the aftermath speak louder than words ever could. By the time Ethan's car pulled away from the wedding, the reception was still buzzing. Phones were glued to headlines. Bartender builds global tequila empire. Invisible son finally seen. Julian Kess shocks family at sister's wedding. His dad sat in stunned silence, nursing his untouched glass, muttering incoherently. Tessa tried to smooth things over, but even she had to admit, her little brother had delivered a lesson no one would forget. Guests whispered, Cousins and uncles scrambled for information, and James's family still looked like they'd seen a ghost. Meanwhile, Ethan smiled quietly in the driver's seat. No grand exit, no gloating, just satisfaction. He'd shown up, owned the room, and walked away, letting the truth do all the talking. Later that night, Tessa texted him. "Did you really have to humiliate him like that?" Ethan's reply, "Did I, or did the truth do that all on its own?" And with that, the story was complete. A week later, Ethan sat in his sleek downtown office, glass of water in hand, overlooking the city lights. Emails, calls, and media mentions had been pouring in nonstop. The story of the bartender who built a tequila empire had gone viral, and business opportunities were raining down. His phone buzzed, a message from Tessa. "Thanks for making them see you. Even Dad, he's still mad, but—" Ethan smirked, typing back, "No need to thank me. The truth was the best bartender tonight." He leaned back, satisfied. Invisible for decades, erased and dismissed, and now, seen, respected, and entirely untouchable. And as for his dad, well, some lessons take longer to digest than a fine aged tequila. Ethan didn't need to chase validation. He'd earned it quietly, effortlessly, perfectly. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's the truth served neat.